Welcome to the lecture series Programming in C. In this session, we will learn about decision making statements, which is part of control structures in C language. In this module, we will focus on decision making and branching statements with respect to if statement and if else statement. So, generally control structures are the structures or statements which are used in C language to alter the flow of execution of a program. Say for example, if we have the statements 1 to be executed and 2 to be executed, and we have also 3 statement to be executed. Actually, the next statement to be executed will be the 4th statement, but for our requirement we want the statement 6 to be executed. So, in that case my flow of execution will have to be moved to the 6th statement. So, 6th statement. So, after 6th statement I may want to continue with 7th and 8th statement, or I may want to go back to the 4th statement. So, in case if I am going to continue with 7 and 8 statement, this can be moved. The control flow of execution can be moved from 3 to 6, and then from 6 it can start executing the statements in sequence. So, in case if we want to change the flow of execution from the regular sequence, we may need some control statements in C language. These statements are classified into 2 categories called decision control statements and loop control statements. Decision control statements are the one in which some criteria will be fixed, and based on the decision of the criteria or the condition, the statement or the flow of execution can be moved to the required statement. Say for example, I am checking a condition whether 2 is less than 3. I check a condition whether 2 is less than 3. If this condition will always be true. Supposing if I am using a variable instead of the value I less than 3, I value keeps changing and we may not be sure that I value will always be 3. So, if the value of I is less than 3, which is going to make a decision. So, this we will call it as decision. So, based on that decision, I may want to change the flow of execution of the program. If the I value is less than 3, I may want to execute the statement 7. If the I value is not less than 3, I may want to execute statement 8. So, the flow of execution can be modified based on the decision taken by the decision statement. So, this type of control structure is what is called decision control statements. And looping control statements are the one in which if some statements to be repeated a number of times, then we can make it through loop control statements, which we will be learning in the future sessions. So, this session we will first focus on learning about the decision control structures. So, what are all the set of decision control statements which are used in C language? We have 5 set of control statements which are used for making a decision, and based on the output of the decision, the corresponding statement can be executed. The list of decision control statements are if statement, if else statement, and then we will call it as else if ladder, and then nested if statement and switch statement. So, these are the 5 categories of decision control statements. We will be learning each statement in detail. So, what is the use of if statement? It is a most simple and powerful decision making statement which is used for executing a block of statements when a given condition is true. So, it checks for the condition using if statement. If the condition is true, it can go ahead with executing n number of statements. The next statement will be the statement which will be executed after the execution of this block. As we have already seen, the sequence or the flow of execution would be, if this condition is true, if this condition becomes true, then it starts executing the statements inside the block. If the condition fails, it will skip this block and the flow of execution will be moved to the next statement. So, the representation of if statement can be given in these two ways: if condition, the block of statements, and some notations will be this as next statement, some will call this as statement 3. So, both syntaxes says that if the condition is true, only the statements within the block will be executed, otherwise the flow goes to the next statement after the block. So, this can be represented using a flow diagram called flow chart, in which the decision is represented using the decision box, which is a rhombus, and then if this condition is true, it executes the block within the if structure, and if the condition is false, it goes with the next statement. Since it checks only one condition and it takes action only when it is true, this if statement is said to be a simple decision making statement. We can see with an additional example. So, we will take an integer named num, and we will take we will use a printf statement to enter the number, and we will read the number through a scanf statement. It checks for the condition. What is the condition that it checks? Num mod 2. This mod operator will give the remainder of division. So, num when it is divided by 2, it means let us take the num value to be say 5 initially. So, 5 mod 2 results in the value 1, because when you divide 5 by 2, the remainder what you get will be the output of the mod operation. So, the remainder will be 1, which is not equal to 0. In the decision making statement, the criteria is that if this part, if num mod 2 value, if it is equal to 0, only then the condition becomes true, but in this case the condition is false. So, it will skip this block, and goes to the next statement and just prints that end of program. Let us take the num value to be 4. I take the num value to be 4 now. 4 mod 2, which will be the output of dividing 4 by 2, which will be 0. So, we again check the condition that whether num mod 2 is equal to 0, the condition becomes true. If the condition becomes true, as we have already seen, it executes the statements inside the block. So, inside the block there is only one statement, number is even. So, we will be getting the output as number is even. So, in fact, for all the even numbers, we will get this mod operation output to be 0. So, that is the reason that we can in general display the message as number is even. Okay. Now, we will have we will need a small clarification on the way that how a condition can be represented in an if or if else statement. So, we will be using the relational expressions. So, what are the relational operators? Less than, greater than, less than equal to, greater than equal to, mod not equal to, and equality operator. So, double equal to symbol if you use, it is for checking equality. So, 1 plus 1, is it equal to 2? This condition becomes true if it is equal. Not equal to 2, not equal to, this is the equation which, this is the expression which is used for checking whether the left hand side and right hand side of the relational expression are not equal. So, it says a 3.2 not equal to 2.5, this becomes true. Then less than is used to check whether the operator 1, operand 1 and operand 2, operand 1 is less than operand 2. So, in this case the output is false. Then greater than symbol is used for checking whether operand 1 is greater than operand 2, this becomes true in this case. Then 126 less than or equal to 100, 5.0 greater than or equal to 100, this becomes true. So, this is a way that the condition statement can be given in a if statement. The relational operators can also be used with mathematical operators in the sense arithmetic operators. The arithmetic operators are plus, minus, division symbol, asterisk symbol for multiplication. In case if it is used with the arithmetic operators, the relational operators will have lower precedence. So, it will be executed only at the end. Say for instance, if we take an example like this 5 asterisk 7 greater than or equal to 3 plus 5 asterisk 7 minus 1. So, always remember the parenthesis operator will have more priority. So, that will be executed first to get the value 6, and then the asterisk and division operator. So, that will be executed. So, this will be executed. So, we get 35 greater than or equal to 3 plus 30 again, because it is also a multiplication operator. Then we have the set of plus and minus operators as the precedence. So, we get that will be executed and we get 35 and 33 at the left hand and right hand side respectively. So, here after only the relational operator will be operated, whose result is now true because 35 is greater than or equal to 33. Then relational operators cannot be chained in the way that you see in algebra. In algebra, we will use a notation 2 less than 3 less than 5. This kind of notation we can see, but here we will not be able to use that way. We have to convert it to the proper relational expression and then only we will be able to use it. Then if else statement. In the case of if statement, we have seen that if the condition is true, it executes a set of statements, but what if the condition fails? So, that is not handled by the if statement. So, that is a reason that if else statement is able to handle that. So, the general syntax of if else statement would be if expression. In this expression, the conditional statement can be represented, and if the condition becomes true, it executes statement 1. Statement 1 can be a single statement or it can be a block. If it is a block of statement, then we can say that if condition, there is a block of statement which has to be executed if it is true, if the condition is true, else. If the condition is false, also you can have a block of statements that can be executed. So, the expression can just be numeric or it can be a conditional expression. Numeric in the sense, I can just have it as if 3. This is also accepted. This will consider the value 3 as its Boolean value for its presence. If there is a numerical value, then the condition will be treated as true. We will take a simple example. Before that, we will explore on the flow diagram. So, we check a condition using the decision symbol. So, here it has 2 branches. Henceforth, it is also named as the branching statement. The if else statement is also named as branching statement. The very basic reason is that it has more than one branch. So, there is a branch if the condition is true, there is a branch if the condition is false. If the condition is true, you can have a block, if the condition is false also you can have a block. And remember, after executing the set of statements in the if block or in the else block, it returns to the next statement. It means that even if the condition becomes true, it executes the block of if statement and it goes to the next statement. If the condition becomes false, it executes a set of statements in this block and then it returns the control to the next statement. That is a beautiful structure that C has, because nowhere the if else statement would get hanged up or nowhere the abstract termination would be possible, because it handles both the branches. If, let us take an example, if n greater than 0. So, n value can be user defined. So, I will take n as value 4 for the first time and n as value 5 for the next time. So, when I take n value to be 4, it checks for the condition n greater than 0. So, yes, 4 is greater than 0. So, this condition becomes true. If this condition becomes true, then the statement inside the if will be executed. So, it checks this condition. What this condition says? If is prime of n, it checks whether the given n value is prime number or not. If n is prime, then this condition becomes true. For our example having n to be 4, this condition fails, because n is not a prime number. If n is not a prime number, then this condition would not be, or this statement would not be executed. So, for our first case, this statement will not be, the set of statements, this block will not be executed and it goes to the else part. It has to go to the next statement. The next statement has a else keyword. In the else keyword, it will display the value, it will display the message as printf input must be positive. Again, after completing the else part, it has to go to the next statement. But one thing we have to remember is that, is this else statement a part of inner if statement or the outer if statement, or the first if statement or the second if statement? The second if statement is not having any else part. The first if statement has a else part. It is an if else statement. Fine. If the condition, now I take the n value to be 5. I first check this first the n value whether it is greater than 0. It means it is whether it is positive. If it is positive, it is able to execute, check the next if statement. It checks for the primality of the value n. So, if it is prime, then it displays the value to be prime. Nowhere we can see that it is just returning the value. Whatever it be the case, if it is prime, you will get the display as prime. If it is not prime, you will get the display as not prime after executing the else part also. So, each else is associated with closest previous else less if statement. So, using this principle, multiple way or multi-way decisions can be constructed. We will consider some more examples just to say understand the way that if and if else are treated in C. So, we will take number equal to 7 and we are just checking whether number greater than 3. In this case, the number 7 is obviously greater than 3. So, we will get the statement inside the if block executed. This has only if statement. Coming to the next example, we take an integer value I to be 20 and we check for the condition I less than 15. So, I value is 20. So, we check for 20 less than 15, that is not true. So, if it is not true, it will skip this part, and it goes to the else part. In the else part, it will start displaying the value as I greater than 15. After executing this else statement, it goes to the next statement will be return 0. Then we will see one more example in which GFG is a variable which is assigned with the value 9. We check for the condition GFG less than 10. Is it less than 10? Yes, it is less than 10. So, the condition becomes true here. So, if the condition becomes true, it is able to execute this block of statement. So, we get this printf done, and we have one more if statement in which we check whether it is greater than 20. The value is 9, the value of GFG is 9, we are checking whether it is greater than 20. So, this condition is false now. If this condition is false, it will skip this statement, it will not execute this statement, and both the if statements after completing its execution, it will go to the next statement, return statement. After completing this if statement, this statement will be executed, and then it goes to the return statement after completing the or after checking the condition, because it becomes false, this statement will be skipped. Let us take an example that we should check for two things. A candidate will be checked for voting. Let us assume that the age criteria for affixing the vote is 18, and if the vote we want to count the number of male votes and female votes. So, in this case we may have to check two criteria, age and gender. So, on checking for the criteria age, I want to check whether he is eligible for voting. Okay. So, let us write a small program for checking these two conditions using two if else statements. So, let us first check for the age. So, if age is greater than or equal to 18, greater than or equal to 18, then only then we are going to get the gender of the candidate. So, here I am going to use a block which is going to be executed when this condition is true. So, the block will be like I want to read the gender information. Let us have %c because it is going to be M for male and F for female. So, I will just include the gender details. Then we have to check if the gender is going to be male, we are going to use a different counter for counting the number of male votes, and if the gender is going to be female, we will have different counter to count the number of female votes. So, I will also include one more if statement. The if statement should be having the condition to check whether the gender is equal to male. I will just consider the uppercase m character, we will ignore the lowercase m, we will assume that the gender field is going to take only the uppercase m character. So, I am just checking gender is equal to the character m. So, if it is m, we will have a counter to increment the number of male votes. Else, I will include one more else part. In my else part, I can just say that the female counter is going to be incremented. Since we have a binary condition that the gender can only be M, only be F, we can make use of the if statement to count the values or the votes of male counter, the male votes, and we can count the number of female votes. If not, if we are going to even consider the transgenders, so we can add one more if statement to check or count the number of transgenders, and as required we can have the if statements conditions checked. Okay. So, let us assume that we go for checking male and female votes. We were given the task to count the number of male and female votes. So, in this case I will close this if statement. So, the complete set of statements has to be executed only when the age criteria is greater than or equal to 18. Else we will have one more else part. In this else part, let me just print a message saying that not eligible for vote. Yeah. So, here the structure, the decision structure, how it follows is that we have an if else statement over here. Also we have one more if else statement, right. So, every if statement should follow its own corresponding else statement. If we are missing out certain else statement, or if we are missing out certain blocks, the complete structure, the decision making structure may fail. So, that is the reason that we have to be very careful on using the if and corresponding else statements. On summarizing this session, we have learnt how the decision making statement is going to help in branching the execution, flow of execution. So, generally the flow of execution will be sequential from 1 to 2, then 2 to 3, then 3 to 4, it goes on like that. But if we want to change the sequence of execution, we will be able to introduce the decision making and branching statements, in which we have seen the if statement. If statement is used to check a single condition, and if the condition becomes true, we are just going to have a set of statements to be executed, and then if the condition is false, it ignores or it goes to the next statement. Whereas, in the case of if else statement, it checks for the condition. If it is true, it executes a set of statements, and if it is false, it executes a different block of statements. On completing both the blocks, the control or the flow of execution is returned to the next statement. So, this is how the simple if and if else statement are helping us decide on a particular given condition, that in what way the flow of execution has to proceed. Thank you so much for watching this session. Thank you.